Okay, let's get started. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Asia Pacific Satellite Session. I'm Chihiro Iijima Wein, an IP attorney based in Tokyo. I'm honored to serve as today's moderator. First of all, thank you for joining us for this Asia Pacific session. We truly appreciate your time and interest in being part of this community. Throughout today's session, we will hear from three leading experts who will share their knowledge. First, Domingos Ng from China. He will talk about intellectual property, Macau as a platform for China Portuguese-speaking countries' collaboration. Domingos holds an LLB from the Faculty of Law at the Catholic University of Lisbon and a master's degree in IP law from the University of Macau. He's currently an associate IP executive at IP Sole Agency Limited in Macau. He has nearly 4 years of experience handling day-to-day IP operations, crafting tailored IP strategies for clients, liaising with government IP departments, and delivering professional IP solutions. His areas of interest include cross-border IP collaboration and the role of Macau as a bridge in IP ecosystems. Also, he handled litigation in the Macau courts and the trademark office in relation to IP cases such as infringement or unfair competition. Second, Manika Arora from India will talk about patentability issues in disruptive technologies. Manika is an associate partner at Lord & Sethi, a leading intellectual property law firm in India. She's an attorney at law and a registered patent agent with over 10 years of experience in IP law. Manika holds a Master of Technology in Biotechnology and LLB in Intellectual Property Rights from the Indian Institute of Technology. Her professional expertise lies in patent prosecution, oppositions, enforcement, and litigation, with a strong focus on imaging technologies in life science, biotechnology, medical devices, and chemistry. She has represented clients before Indian patent offices, high courts, and the Supreme Court, and advised global cooperation on IP portfolio strategy, freedom to operate, and lifecycle management. Manika's technical foundation stems from her early research at the National Center for Biological Sciences, where she worked on apoptosis related to genes. Her hands-on knowledge of molecular biology and biotech tools gives her a unique advantage in navigating complex patent issues involving disruptive technologies. Lastly, Isha from India will talk about IPR valuation, IPR support to startups, IPR commercialization. Isha is a distinguished legal and intellectual property expert with over 15 years of experience in IPR, patents, trademarks, copyrights, industrial designs, IP valuation, and commercialization. She holds advanced qualifications including Master of Technology, Bachelor of Technology, and a postgraduate diploma in intellectual property, and is a registered patent agent. As the founder of Torayama Buck and Viaduat, she has established a global presence in the IPR and legal sector, providing strategic counsel and end-to-end solutions to clients across industries. Based in Noida with offices in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Ahmedabad, her team provides IPR and legal assistance across the globe, including India, the USA, Europe, Dubai, and so on. Okay. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few housekeeping points. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded. If you have any questions during the presentations, please feel free to use the Q&A box. We will address them after all the presentations have concluded. For technical problems, please send your message in the chat box to AIPPI events. And there will be a brief survey after the webinar. We would appreciate it if you could share your feedback with us. Okay, now let's move on the main program. Our first speaker is Domingos Ng. So Domingo, please begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Domingos Ng, and my name Domingos is a Portuguese name because I was studying in Portugal for my university, and so I chose my name Domingos. In English, it means Sunday, so they call me Sunday also. And my Chinese name is Ng Fok Yin. It's a little bit difficult for you, but okay. And I was born in Macau and study in Portugal and for my university. And I'm an associate IP executive at IPSO Intellectual Property Agency Limited in Macau. And we are a CNC group. So we have two sister company. We are the sister company relationship. And me with 4 years of the experience in the IP area, I'm honored to join this AIPPI Young Members Summit 2025. So today I would like to discuss with all of you the young generation, which is under 36 years old, if I'm not misunderstanding, and the future leaders of the IP field. How Macau served as a unique bridge for IP cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries. So let me start my landscape of the Portuguese-speaking country nations. So we have 5 points to say and the conclusion in the final stage. Okay. So there are 9 countries worldwide where Portuguese is an official language, spanning Europe, South America, Africa, and Asia. First, Portugal in Europe. It is a deep historical roots and robust IP legal system. And about Brazil in South America, is a global leader in technology, innovation, and agriculture with significant IP achievements. And in African nations like Angola, Mozambique, and others, which hold unique IP potential in nature resources exploration and traditional knowledge protections. So these nations, each excelling in diverse field, present vast opportunities for cooperation with China. So in Macau, with this unique history, geography, and multicultural environments, is emerging as a critical link for deepening IP collaborations. So let me talk about Macau's unique positions. Since returning to China in 999, under the one country, two system principle, Macau has maintained a distinct legal and development model. Shaped by his historical tie with Portugal, Macau shared deep culture, legal, and commercial bonds with Portuguese-speaking countries. So the second point we can see is the legal framework. Macau's comprehensive IP law covering trademarks, patent, copyrights are influenced by Portuguese-speaking countries, enabling it to understand their legal models and lay a foundation for cross-border cooperation. And about the geographical advantage, Macau located on China's south coast, and Macau served as a gateway between China mainland and the global market. Its efficient transport networks facilitate the flow of the people, of the goods, and informations idea for IP exchanges, business, negotiation, and academic events as well. So we can see in Macau, we have the Sino-Portuguese Forum. It's called the Surface Platform for Business and Trade Cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries, an important position given by the central government of China to Macau in the national development strategy. The Sino-Portuguese Forum was established in 2003 with a permanent secretary in Macau in order to capitalize on Macau's geographical advantage and promote the appropriate diversification of its economy, consolidating and continuing to play the role of Macau as a platform for Sino-Portuguese economy and trade cooperation in one of the Macau important tasks. With the gradual expansion of the economic trade cooperation between China, Portuguese-speaking country, the CPLPF is called the Community of the Cities of Portuguese-speaking countries, Comunidade dos Países de Língua Portuguesa, has been organizing more and more events year by year. And in 2018, it organized or participated in many as 90 events, most of which were attended by representatives from both China and Portuguese-speaking countries. And the second point, we can see that we have the permanent secretaries of the Forum and Economic and Trade Cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries. The Forum for the Economic and Trade Cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries, also known as Forum Macau, as launched in 2003. It resulted from an initiative by China's central government in coordination with 7 Portuguese-speaking countries and with the collaboration of the government of Macau, São Tomé and Príncipe, joined Forum Macau in 2017, becoming the 8th Portuguese-speaking country to join the organization. And now let's talk about the IPPI cooperation between Macau and Portuguese-speaking countries. So it's the strategy, platform, and the foundations. As a surface platform for business and trade cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking country, Macau leverages its linguistic and geographic edge. Initiatives like the Hengqin New Area International IP Protection Alliance, linked to China-Latin America Economic and Trade Cooperation Platform, integrate resources for international IP protection under the Belt and the Road Initiative. So about the core cooperation area in achievements. First, the institutionalized exchange and the regulatory dialogue. The professional symposium, the 3rd Portuguese-speaking countries IP Symposium, fostered dialogue on legal framework among China, Macau, Portugal, Brazil, and others, driving cross-border IP protection strategy. Regarding this, the 6th Ministerial Conference of the China's Portuguese-speaking countries Economic and Trade Cooperation Forum Action Plan for Economic for Trade Cooperation, the 6th Ministerial Conference of China Portuguese-speaking country, was held in Macau on 2024, its last year, and the 7th Ministerial Conference is planning to be held in 2027, also in Macau. So we have also the training program. The China Portuguese-speaking countries Forum's Training Center collaborated with Macau's university to host IP seminars for official and industry representatives from nations like Brazil and Mozambique, enhancing professionals' capabilities. And about the IP empowerment in technology and in industry. First, we can see the policy support is the China-Macau Deep Cooperation Zone offer incentive to Portuguese-speaking country tech enterprises, integrating IP protection into service to drive technology commercialization in the Greater Bay Areas. And the second, we can see the digital innovation. The Macau University partnered with the Portuguese entity to develop the digital products and set technical standards. Made in Macau, this IP brand for mainland, for South Asia, and Portuguese-speaking market. And also the talent cultivation and resource integration. Cross-regional events nurture compound talents proficiency in both Chinese and Portuguese-speaking IP law. For example, the third IP Symposium conference expert to discuss cutting-edge topics, positioning Macau as a talent transit hub for Sino-Portuguese IP corporations. And about the expansion in the Greater Bay Area context. Under the Greater Bay Area framework, Macau channels innovating resources from Portuguese-speaking countries into the region via events like 2019 Greater Bay Area IP Trade Fair. The China-Macau Zone strengthened the China-Portuguese-speaking country Science and Technology Exchange and Cooperation Center, forming a full chain model. Macau connect to Portuguese-speaking nation, Hangqin facilitating industrial, lending the Bay Area providing market support, boosting Macau's economic diversity. And so now we talk about the challenge and also the opportunity between Macau and Portuguese-speaking countries. So, of course, we have the challenge, as we can see, is the very IP protection standard across China, Macau, and Portuguese-speaking countries pose risk of cross-border transactions, and also the shortage of the interdisciplinary IP talent family with multiple legal systems, hinders deep cooperations. And on the other hand, we also have the opportunities. That is the Belt and Road Initiative drive closer economic and tech ties. The tech ties. Elevating IP's role in innovations. Macau can leverage this to build comprehensive IP corporations mechanisms. And also, with digital technologies offer new paths. Means Macau can promote digital IP protections and online trading platform, such as a cross-border IP database for the information sharing. So now for my suggestion for our future development with the Portuguese-speaking countries. First, I think the harmonized IP protection standards we have to set up. Macau should facilitate to joint research to adjust the IP law, reducing institutional barriers for cross-border protections. And the second, about the boost talent cultivation. Universities in Macau should optimize curricular with Portuguese-speaking institutions and attract global IP talent through joint training and exchanging opinions. And the third one is the Build IP Service Platform. Establish IP Trade Center for one-stop service, transfer, licensing, financing, and arbitration center to resolve cross-border disputes efficiently. And the final one is the deepen industry-university research collaborations. Encourage joint IP innovation projects to transform research into productivity, and promote cross-border partnership between mainland Macau and Portuguese-speaking institutions. So, in my conclusion, I would like to use two Portuguese proverbs for my conclusion part. As we can see in the PowerPoint, sozinhos vamos mais rápido, juntos vamos mais longe. It means alone we can go faster, together we can go further. So IP protection is a global issue. Only through joint efforts can we break down geographical and institutional barriers and ensure the long-term protection and value sharing of innovation achievements. And the second phrase is uma andorinha não faz só, não faz verão. It means one swallow does not make a summer. In my opinion, individual efforts alone are insufficient to build a summer of the IP protection. Only by pooling the consents of China, Macau, and Portuguese-speaking countries and deepening cooperation with Macau as a bridge, we can jointly welcome to spring of the IP protection in innovation developments. So in Macau, it's willing its unique advantage to serve as the IP link connecting China and Portuguese-speaking countries and work together with all parties and gather strength through cooperations and embrace the future through innovations. So, thank you for your listening.
Okay. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Domingos. Now I would like to invite our next presenter, Manika Arora. Manika, please begin your presentation.
Thank you, Chihiro. And I'll just start with commenting on what Domingos said about harmonization of IP standards, and I totally echo with that thought, not just Macau and Portuguese-speaking nations, but the entire nation. So this is the era, and with that, I'll start with my presentation. I'll just share my screen. So the topic for so I'll just give you a brief introduction, though Chihiro has extensively spoken about the introduction. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. And my name is Manika Arora, and I'm a practicing attorney and patent agent with Lal & Sethi, which is a IP boutique law firm based out in India. I specialize in patent prosecution, advisory, and strategies, and my main focus is on emerging technologies in the life science pharmaceutical domain and its convergence with the artificial intelligence. So it's a pleasure to be here at the AIPPI Young Member Summit 2025. So today's session is about more than just patent. It's about how innovation itself is changing. Disruptive technologies in pharmaceutical, biotechnologies, particularly the AI-driven drug discovery, gene editing, personalized medicine, are challenging the very foundation of our IP systems. So they are in fact reshaping, and not just what we protect, but how we define several facets of IP law, such as inventorship, inventive step, and even disclosure. So my presentation aims to explore these faulty lines where the legal framework are struggling to keep pace with the speed, complexity, and ethical depth of the scientific disruption. And hopefully I'll uncover strategies and ideas that we can help with bridging this gap. So the theme of my topic is disruption, but not in a buzzwordy overuse sense. I mean true structural disruption, the kind that rewrites the rules itself. So so this would be the agenda of my presentation. So here's how we'll navigate today. First, I'll unpack what disruptive innovation really means, where it comes from, how it scales, and why it matters so much in pharma biotech domain. Then I'll zoom on the technology reshaping these landscapes, such as CRISPR, synthetic biology, AI, and drug discovery, and highlight what makes them fundamentally different from the traditional technology that we were used to. Next, we'll explore the legal challenge, what they create, who qualifies as an inventor when AI is involved, how to handle disclosure when models are black box, and what happens when biotech patent intersect with ethical concerns. And finally, we'll take a look of how companies and legal community can respond from a smarter patent strategies to urgent need for global policy updates. So we'll outline ways to future-proof innovation in this rapidly evolving space. So, firstly, to understand where we are today, we need to begin with a story. So, what are the disruptive innovation? So, this term was coined 2 decades ago by Joseph L. Bauer and Clayton M. Christensen in 1995 in a Harvard Business Review article which with the title Disruptive Technology Catching the Wave. So in the mid 1990s, these professors, Harvard professor, noticed a strange pattern in the technology world. The industry leaders, those with best products, deeper customer relationship, and seemingly unshakable dominance were being appended, not by just versions of themselves, but by outside, small companies with some rudimentary products that initially seemed irrelevant. So these two professors studied this across several technology from hard disk drive to mechanical excavators, and they discovered a very startling truth, which was the very things that make the company successful are often the same things that make them vulnerable to disruption. So they coined these terms disruptive technologies to describe this phenomena. So what is this disruptive innovation? They generally start by serving the mainstream market. They begin in a margin, simpler, cheaper, more accessible, and over time it gets better, and eventually it overtakes the incumbents who were too busy optimizing yesterday to see tomorrow coming. So take an example of how smartphones disrupted the camera industry or how ride sharing disrupted traditional taxis. Today, we are seeing similar disruption in healthcare and pharmaceutical, where the AI-driven diagnostics, gene editing, 3D bioprinting are gradually reshaping the foundational system itself. But now, like say a century later after the term was devised, we are seeing disruption at an entirely different scale, not just to market but to knowledge, biology, and law. So what is the challenge here? The challenge is our intellectual property systems weren't built on these kind of disruption. They are designed around stable linear innovation, and they often serve incumbents better than they do emerging. So with the fast moving technology, the question is, are does our IP laws or the across the jurisdiction are the laws being redefined to match these moving technologies? On that thought, so I'll just start with what the pharma and biotech disruptive case studies are, some of the examples. And I'll start with the convergence of NBIC. So disruption in biotech, it's not just molecular, it's powered by data, devices, and cognition. That's NIBC, which is nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive sciences, all converging to give us what we have and what inventions are coming out today. So these domains no longer evolve separately, they accelerate with each other. So IP strategies must reflect this multidimensional innovations. We are standing at the convergence of two most powerful general purpose technologies of our times, which is biotechnology and artificial intelligence. So together, they can produce havoc too, that we all have seen. And some of the real world convergence examples are, say, mRNA, the AI models which predict antigen targets and genomic personalize it, and the mRNA turns it into a programmable treatment. The other one would be CRISPR and bioinformatics. AI helps design what edits are needed and predict off-target risk at real time. Wearable sensors and their cognitive modeling. These enable adaptive live response therapies informed by patient-specific biometrics. So, what does this mean for? Uh, so, uh, in fact, COVID accelerated this. The COVID-19 outbreak accelerated this research in this area. The rapid development of mRNA vaccines involved synthetic biology, lipid nanoparticle delivery, real-time modeling, and global scale data sharing. So diagnostics were powered by biosensors and cloud-based analytics. AI platform helped repurpose drug into silico, completely bypassing the traditional wet lab in early discovery stages. Biotechnology is no longer in isolated web lab discipline. It now exists in a digital first ecosystem where biology is manipulated, stimulated, and in fact, whatever invention I am seeing in my field, I mostly start with in silico analysis and they then go on to optimization. So in short, we are living in post-silico world. Biology is being reimagined through the lens of computing, data sciences, and system engineering. And this conversion is pushing the limits of what IP law can currently accommodate. They challenge our legal definition of inventorship, reproducibility, and disclosure. And what brings us to the core of today's discussion is how do we protect and regulate such hybrid, high velocity innovations? So I'll briefly start with what are certain technologies in this area, which is converging with artificial intelligence, CRISPR gene editing, 3D bioprinting is moving from prosthetics to bioprinting of tissues and organs. There are lab-grown skin, corneas, and even liver tissue being prototyped, offering future alternatives to donor-based transplantations. So there is big data, IoTs, biosensor, the wearable devices. What links all these technologies is their disruptive power and their ability to merge biology with computation, engineering, and data. They don't just change how we do pharma or biotech, they change the very rule we use to protect and regulate it. So these are some of the patentability issue that we all know are around these technologies, be it ethical issue, be it the inventorship issue, be it the inventive step issue, the assessment of inventive steps, the personalized versus broader claims, or the environmental issues around it. So, what are some of the unique traits of biotech disruption? So, unlike the disruptive technologies, say, which are completely in deep tech, say, in such as SAP and on the electronic side, some of the unique traits of biotech disruptions are unlike the typical software or the app-based startups. Biotech innovation do go from idea to market in, say, 18 months. They often require more than 12 years, 7 to 10 years or more of intensive research, clinical validation, and regulatory approval. There's also a much higher risk profile. A failed molecule can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Add to that the ethical and social scrutiny that comes with manipulating living systems, whether it's editing a gene, growing an organ, or collecting the sensitive data using these wearable devices. This combination of long timelines, regulatory complexity, and ethical stakes make the intellectual property protection not just important but essential. Without strong and well-structured IP, there's often no commercial incentive to invest in these sciences. And yet, traditional IP systems weren't designed for unique intersection of biology, data, and AI. This creates new tensions, especially with regards to different standards across the board, across different jurisdictions, the scope of invention, inventorship, the standard of disclosure, its access. And we'll explore this in my next slide, which is where this IP meets this resistance. So one of the fundamental challenge we face today is, unlike the intellectual property systems, that now we are working with, particularly the AI generated inventions and engineered biologic system. Let's take the AI for example. So by automating parts of research process, say when we start with a protein folding prediction or gene screening, AI can drastically reduce what used to be considered inventive. So this puts pressure on the non-obviousness standard, which is a core of a requirement for patentability. Then there's the issue of disclosure. AI models are often black box, highly complex, non-linear systems. They are often difficult to explain or how replicate them. For examiner, that raises the questions, has the invention really been disclosed in a way that meets the legal requirement of disclosure or best mode? And perhaps most importantly, the inventorship is under real pressure. In AI generated invention, there is often no clear natural person who contributes to the core inventive idea. So, this raises the philosophical, legal, and jurisdictional debate that we have all seen in the Dabis case. And who can be named as the inventor? So, when you combine all of this with the fast moving fields like synthetic biology, where living organisms are engineered like softwares and system being to show real cracks. So we are in a moment where innovation is outpacing legislation and implications are profound. So the fundamental promise of patent system, say the quid pro quo, disclosure in exchange of temporary monopolies, challenge when the technologies evolve faster than the protection periods itself. Then we come to the inventive step, which I briefly spoke about. So this current system uh, is we're grappling, like throughout the world, there has been debates on what the person skilled in the art would be in field of invention, which is now aided by AI, which could make more inventions seem less obvious. And definitely, in my opinion, the test should now evolve. So, for many jurisdictions that refer to the requirement of non-obviousness, traditionally this is just judged against this hypothetical person. But that person is evolving. In today's landscape, this skilled individual isn't working alone. They're using powerful AI tool that can suggest molecular structure, analyze gene pathway, or even stimulate drug interactions in silico. As AI systems become more accurate and widely accessible, they effectively raise the baseline of what this skilled person can do. What might have been invented for a human researcher a decade ago seems now to be routine with what we are seeing with the AI support. This puts pressure on the very idea of inventiveness. If AI can routinely generate outputs, this seems novel and useful, but are the result of computation rather than insight. How do we draw the line between the true invention and a predictable outcome? So the question is here, should the inventive step evolve? Absolutely. And how do we fairly ensure fairness across all industry jurisdictions, especially when not all inventors have equal access to these tools? So what should the guidelines be? That's a big question mark here. The next would be the very obvious one, inventorship. So, when an AI model develops a novel therapy, who truly deserves the credit as the inventor? the coder, the person who curated the data, or the AI itself? This question is highly complex and challenges the very basis of our system. So under the current law, inventorship is tied to human mental conception of an idea. This becomes difficult when AI independently generates the novel solution, and what humans doing are just verifying it. So no single human may have conceived the invention in the traditional sense. So highlight is the Dabis, the famous Dabis case, where initially the invention was allowed in South Africa, but later they revoked it. In fact, in Australia too. So the court emphasized the legal requirement, and in US and UK they were never allowed. So this sets a precedence. Even groundbreaking AI generated therapies may be unpredictable unless a human is identified. So what we have here is there are options to keep a human in loop and things like that. So in pharma, AI is used to generate molecular structure, which are the drug candidates and the biomarkers. So often there are risks. The real risk: can the company own or protect these AI generated therapies? What do? They disclose it as a AI generated model, or they do not disclose it? So that's the dilemma here. So there is definitely a distributed contribution. So in practice, many roles are involved: the developer, the data scientist, domain expert. So, but the courts don't, in fact, our patent systems don't recognize this inventorship. So there are policy gaps with respect to the evolving standards. There is no global consonance on how to handle these AI generated inventions. They are growing at such a high pace. So some legal scholars and policy bodies suggested defining a new class, which is, say, this AI generated inventions, attributing inventorship to the person who configures this AI, or creating legal instruments, another class. Say in say while filing a patent, you need to disclose if there is an AI contribution with respect to the IP that's been generated. So the only part is, as AI becomes a co-creator in drug development, which is being consumed by human itself, we must rethink inventorship, not just to reward creativity, but to ensure that these inventions remains protectable, and there is ethical issues also concerned here. So the other part is with regards to the sufficiency or disclosure standards. So AI models, as we all know, are hard to explain and replicate. So the traditional disclosure that demands transparency, but many AI systems are opaque. This leads inventors to hide the information, hurting the public knowledge sharing. So can you patent something if you can't explain how it works? That's the dilemma with the black box AI, especially in the pharma where reproducibility is critical. At the stage for tension between the IP's opacity and patent law's transparency. So, what are these? Basically, the AI models are as black box. These are basically deep neural networks that are not easily interpredictable. Even their developers may not fully understand why a particular output is generated, because each time you run it, there may be different results. This undermines the requirement that an invention to be disclosed clearly and completely. So disclosure requirement in the patent law we need segregation between the IP generated inventions and the disclosure criteria there too, vis-a-vis the solely inventor generated, human generated inventions. So the tension here lies because the inventors may withhold the data, the model, the parameters, or the training methods to promote it as trade secrets, because the process is too complex to explain it concisely. So they might as well not disclose it. But without the sufficient detail, the patent may be invalidated or challenged later. So this is the dilemma here. So, and further the risk, there are several risks involved if AI is used to generate novel compounds. But if the model can't be explained, the output may not meet the disclosure standard. For example, a molecule suggested by a black box may be novel and useful, but if the process can't reproduce, the patent in effect can be rejected. So the idea is, if disclosure is the price of a patent, what happens when even the inventor doesn't fully understand the invention in this AI era? We really need to think what it means to explain and enable. So all these standards needs to be rethink, and we need to get a global consensus across these standards. The next part is, like I said, the rethinking of what we really need to do here. The call for a mind set shift. We need IP strategies that are agile, comprehensive, and designed for interconnected innovation, not just single inventions. So innovation today doesn't happen in silos. So why are we still using the IP tool designed for isolated inventions? So AI and biotech are interactive, fast evolving, and rely on shared infrastructure. And we really need a strategic shift here, which encourages thinking of layered protection, maybe not just patent, a combination of trade secrets, data licensing for training sets, build a modular IP framework that evolves with technology. And this disruption, by the way, demands more than innovation. It demands transformation in how we protect and manage that innovation. Some strategic recommendations for us as the patent practitioner would be smart claiming, layered portfolio strategies, ensuring that we highlight what the human contribution it, ensuring that it's patentable, mean to increase the chances of AI invention being patentable. We need to document what the human input is, so that transforms AI output and avoids, say, overly generic claims, and use domain experts during the drafting of these inventions. And vis-a-vis the policy maker, we really need to push the policymakers to develop specialized examination guidelines for AI biotech invention. They need to consider modified protection terms for technology, say utility models across different jurisdictions should be encouraged, and international harmonization efforts for disruptive technologies, and balance innovation incentives with ethical consideration through transparent policy development. So these are certain strategies, like I discussed it, with respect to ensuring human AI patentability. So the idea can be keeping a human in loop. So that's a clear document on how humans guided human guided guides or selects or redefines the AI output, which transforms AI output into patentable subject matter through expert interpretation. So these are certain recommendation, and the conclusion and takeaway would be here that disruption is constant, and we really need to think of what policy developments, what new ideas have to be brought into, new tools, platforms, and discoveries that will keep emerging. So IP system must be built for adaptability, not just stability. These fields are fast evolving. We need protection strategies, and global alignment is the key. Fragmented laws won't serve to a connected world. Harmonization around inventorship, AI patentability, and ethics are crucial. And we need to have strong IP, which must be also responsible. So these needs to be aligned with the pace at which these technologies are moving. So that was it from my side. Thank you. And if you have any questions, it's welcome. And I would also end with a note that we can't use the 20th century rules to govern the 21st century innovation. If we want IP to support the next generation of breakthrough, it has to evolve with them. Our laws definitely need to evolve with them. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manika. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to invite our last presenter, Isha Sharma. So Isha, please begin your presentation.
Thank you so much, Chihiro. And it's certainly my pleasure to be able to present on this platform. In addition to it, I will also like to take a moment to probably appreciate my fellow speakers, and what they have delivered is making us think on a lot of lines as a IP community. So when we talk about IP and the future aspects associated with it, we have to kind of jointly act together to be able to implement the future ways. So I'll start my presentation, and the topic that I will be covering is IP valuation and commercialization, and how it is important for any sort of business to implement the IP strategies for the business or execution part of it. So before that, although the introduction is already very well placed by Chihiro, I would take a moment to introduce myself as well as the firm. So I'm basically founder of Trambak and Biodroid, which are two firms acting more specifically into the IP. So we do everything with regard to IP. You can consider it as a boutique firm, which is having the head office in Delhi NCR, and then we have 3 satellite offices across India. So we do operate internationally also by executing the projects in different geographies. A little bit about me. So I've done my master's in technology. Then I did my master's in law. I am also a registered patent agent from 2013. And it's been a interesting journey of around 15 years where I have not only provided the services to different sort of clients, but also been very actively involved as a speaker in different platforms, which actually helps me to probably share whatever limited knowledge that I have gathered till now in the IP domain. And a few awards that I've received regarding the entrepreneurship and I would say the business leadership award that I've received in 2023 and 24. I was also recognized as a top 100 influential women in IP in global ranking 2025. So moving ahead to the topic, which is quite interesting to be very honest, because most of the time we only focus on the IP registration part of it, or probably the enforcement when it comes to the litigation. But the other side of it, which is related to the business, is usually missed. So there are 2 topics that we will be discussing today. One is IP valuation, and another one is IP commercialization, which is usually followed by IP valuation. So what exactly IP valuation is? IP valuation is a process of determining the monetary worth of an intellectual property, which can be anything. So all the different forms of IP that we usually work with can be valued and put a number to. So when do we have to do an IP valuation? So most of the time, these are the conditions where the IP valuation becomes like an important aspect or a critical aspect. So one would be when a business is going under through any merger and acquisitions, then during the acquisition proceedings, we need to value the IP as well, if in case it is being transferred. Second would be licensing and commercialization, which basically means that if you want to utilize your IP in the different forms like licensing, franchisee, commercialization, you can use IP valuation as a tool to begin with. Third would be investment and fundraising, more particularly for somebody who is going for funding when it comes to a startup or probably a bigger company as well, going for any fundraising events. At that point of time, IP valuation can actually act as a I would say, a accelerated tool to be able to raise more funds, because it is usually said that if a company is having a valuation of its own, so say for example, if there is a startup and we want to value the startup, approximately 70 to 75% of the valuation of the startup will come from the IP. Fourth would be litigation and disputes, as we know that once we get into any sort of infringement activities and legal actions associated with it, at that point of time, we need to calculate either the profits or the damages that might be asked for. So IP valuation again plays a critical role there. Then for
Isha,
the taxation,
just to
yes.
disrupt, I'm not able to see the presentation. I think you'll have
Okay.
to share it. It's not.
I'm so sorry. Is it visible now?
Yes, now it's visible.
Yes, it's
Okay,
okay.
great. Fine. So I'll just reiterate the points again. So IP valuation is most of the time needed during merger acquisitions, licensing and commercialization, investment and fundraising, litigation and disputes, and taxation and accounting. So we understood that what are the basic reasons or probably requirements to go ahead with IP valuation. Now we will try to understand how to do an IP valuation. So in IP valuation, we usually follow two types of strategies. One is a qualitative method, another one is a quantitative method. So in qualitative method, we usually use certain type of value indicators to give a value to the IP.
Isha,
So
I'm
when we
sorry
talk
to interrupt.
about value
Uh,
indicators, yes, Chihiro,
Could you turn it to presentation mode?
I'll do that. It's done. Is it fine?
Yeah, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So when we were talking about qualitative modes of valuation, it is basically giving a kind of a rating or a scoring to any sort of IP. So say, for example, if we have a patent application and we want to value that through a qualitative mode, so we will try to analyze that whether the patent application is currently valid or not. What is the jurisdictional coverage which it is following? Say, for example, if the patent application is filed only in India and not being covered globally, filed it in multiple countries, then the rating of that patent application will be lower to the one which is already filed in multiple countries. So the kind of rating or the criteria we use are legal strength of the IP, which usually covers the validity and enforceability of any sort of IP, jurisdictional coverages, whether it is one local based country or internationally also. Remaining protection period. So if the patent application is, the validity is only left for say for about 3 years or 5 years, in comparison to the patent application, which is valid for more than 5 years, will be higher. So that way we can do the rating system. History of litigation and enforcement, how many oppositions they have received, whether they are getting into litigation, all of that will be a value indicator. In the same form, the technological significance, of course, as we go ahead with any form of a patent application, the degree of innovation, uniqueness, inventive step, novelty is a critical aspect. So then the relevance of the core business would be there. Market and competitive advantages are there, which is basically ability to create barriers to entry. If it is a very strong IP, right, then there will be a lot of barriers which can be implemented. And also the strategic fit. So not only with respect to the protection of the subject matter which is under consideration, we also very actively play a role as an IP strategist when it comes to the execution in the business part of it. So when you're going for a longer run, you have to plan those strategies that which are going to be the high value indicators and accordingly act in those kind of areas more. In going ahead for a quantitative method, so basically there are three types of methods that we go ahead with a quantitative valuation. First is a cost-based method, another one is a market-based method, and third is a income-based method. So when we go ahead with a cost-based method, we usually evaluate the cost occurring in the development of the IP, which usually, I would say, inculcates the different types of costs associated with it. So one would be a historic cost, which is basically the development of the IP, and also the replacement cost, which basically means that if you have to recreate that IP in this today's condition, it will also be implemented. So taking an example where we have a, say for example, we want to create a pharmaceutical drug where it costed us 10 million to develop that. So according to the cost-based method, it would be said that the valuation of that particular IP for a patent application, or in general combining it, would be tentatively equivalent to 10 million, which will incur both the costs associated with it. So, of course, there are pros and cons for every method that we follow. So the limitation for this method is that it's not always realistic. So if we are doing a kind of a costing of $10 million to create a pharmaceutical drug, it is not necessary that the valuation should be equivalent to it. But this becomes the only method to follow when we don't have anything in comparison which is before existing, and you can do a comparison method to be able to derive an valuation. So as Manika was saying, that if it is a disruptive technology, then if it is a disruptive technology, in that case, what you can do is you can go ahead with a cost-based method, because we don't have anything that we can project and use any other method. Second method that we can follow is a market-based approach. So market-based approach means that if we have a pharmaceutical patent application, a product, and there was a similar pharmaceutical patent and product that was already existing, we can do the kind of comparative analysis between two and try to analyze that if in case it was sold for, say, for example, 10 billion or 50 million. So the valuation of our own patent application will also be similar. So these are best methods when you have some kind of data where you can compare your form of IP, but would have a limitation because these informations are very critical. So it's very hard to find the agreements where it says that this was the figure under which the transaction happened or the licensing happened. So the data is difficult to fetch, but if you're able to get that kind of a figure, it is a very good method to do the IP valuation. Third method is your income-based approach. So basically, income-based approach means that determining the present value of future income generated by the IP asset, which means that we use the futuristic calculations to derive the current value of the IP. So this is usually done by merchant bankers, and the method which is being followed is a discounted cash flow method, which we call as DCF method. It is best method when we have anything related to patent applications or copyrights, because the projected value will always be higher for the future in comparison to today, and we can derive the today's value. But we'll have a limitation because it's very difficult to have accurate predictions, and it will require highly skilled people to be able to derive the actual predictions. So these are the three methods that we usually follow for IP valuation. Now, which method would you like to implement when you have to decide for an IP valuation? So most of the time, none of the method is 100% true. So how we utilize it as a strategy is that implement all the methods, qualitative as well as quantitative methods, and average it out. So that would be the best strategy to move ahead and come to a figure which is going to be a more realistic in terms of implementing it further. So certain examples, just to give you a little bit of number. So trademark valuation of a Coca-Cola brand till 2024 was $107 billion. So we are only talking about the trademark alone, no other form of IP. In a similar way, Disney, which is having a Marvel franchise, has been valued over approximately $10 billion. So this is the number that we are talking about when we go ahead with the IP valuation. Then we will move to the further topic of IP commercialization, which is basically utilizing the IP valuation to be able to make money out of it. So the strategies when what the kind of implementation which we can utilize to be able to make money out of any form of IP would be, first of all, a licensing opportunity where there is no change of ownership. But what you can do is, so if you have a IP, you can probably give a license to somebody to utilize that same thing and get a royalty out of it. Second would be assignment, which is basically transferring your IP, where the ownership will also be transferred and you get a lump sum amount being sent to you. Third would be through joint ventures and collaboration. So there are a lot of companies who join hand together along with certain universities to co-develop and create IP. So that can also be a really good implementation of IP commercialization. Fourth is a franchisee model, which is quite similar to licensing, but franchisee is a very broader term. So not only the IP, I would say permission you're giving, you're also giving the business business implementation associated with it. So how to run that business, what are going to be the machinery associated with it, all of that comes as a complementary in the franchising model. Then we have patent pooling system, which is basically companies creating a quotasum, which is kind of a platform where multiple companies would be free to use that kind of an IP and create something out of that product. Sixth would be productization. Productization again is most of the time being used in IP commercialization because the companies who are filing for an IP are doing it for themselves to exclude others. So this strategy is helpful when you want to keep the IP to you. You don't want to go ahead with any transfer, any licensing. So at that point of time, you can get the IP registered and use it for your own revenue creation. Then seventh point is IP-backed financing, which is basically a lot of financing platforms. Banks are now associating IP as a tool to be able to give you funding out of it. So you can actually go to banks and say that these are the IP portfolios that we have, and bank might be able to give you certain loans or can be used as collaterals as well. So these are the different strategies that you can use for IP commercialization. Certain examples regarding IP commercialization as well. So Infosys using commercialization of their software patent applications, which are being filed. So Infosys financial innovation is being used for by about 450 banks across 100 plus countries. So this is the kind of revenue they're able to generate only by the licensing models. Another example is Tata Motors, which is going through joint ventures and technology transfers. So I believe that is a more realistic example because we have seen that Tata Motors came up with a lot of EV-based cars. So that happened because they went into a joint venture with other companies to get the EV technology being incorporated in their system, and they came up with productization. So that is also a very good and interesting example of the commercialization. Then Biocon used the commercialization of patent applications when they wanted to move international. So you can join hands with other companies if you feel that you are very strong in one domestic market, but you also want to have your international presence. So most of the companies merge with other companies over certain IPs and try to create as a global presence. So Biocon kind of did technology transfers and licensing, and we did certain mergers with Mylan to have the global market in place. So this is from my side. I try to keep it as short as possible. And now if you have any questions, I'll be open to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isha, for your excellent presentation. So now we would like to move on to Q&A sessions. So we have 20 minutes left. Okay. Here are several questions. First, I'm gonna ask to Domingos. First question is, what are Macau's key advantages as a bridge for IP collaboration between China and Portuguese-speaking countries?
Yes, I think Macau's strategic line is three main areas. First one, we have to look to the legal frameworks that Macau's IP law are influenced by Portuguese-speaking countries, mainly is Portugal, because the Portuguese is our official language. In Macau, official language is Chinese, simplified and traditional, and also Portuguese. So it is interesting for us that the official language is Portuguese, it's not English. Hong Kong is English, but Macau is Portuguese. So when we submit the documents to the governments, we have to submit Chinese or Portuguese. English cannot. We have to do other translation. So based on this, we have to make it easier navigate cross-border legal corporations and also the geographical and platform advantage at the permanent secret of the Forum for Economic and Trade Cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries. Macau hosts a professional symposium and training programs to facilitate the policy dialogue and the talent exchange. And final is the Greater Bay Area opportunities. Greater Bay Area is the new policy, not so new, but and this year we talk about, it's very hot topic. It's like 9 cities in China mixed together and be a Greater Bay Area. We call Greater Bay Area to cooperation, to the more cooperation. Through the Hengqin Macau Deep Cooperation Zone, Macau helps also Portuguese-speaking countries commercialize their technologies in the Greater Bay Area. So the Portuguese-speaking country can use Macau as a platform to go inside the China market. This is the Macau, the bridge between Portuguese-speaking country and China. So creating the food chain model, Macau Connects can use the Hengqin industrialize of the Greater Bay Area's markets.
Okay, thank you. And there's one more question. What challenges does Macau face in promoting IP cooperation between China and Portuguese-speaking countries, and how can they be addressed?
Yes, I think the main challenge is the divergent IP standards, because different in the IP protection levels across jurisdiction may create risk for the cross-border transactions. So the solution, I think, is Macau can facilitate joint research to the harmonized legal frameworks. And also, we found the challenge is the shortage of the multidisciplinary talent. This means there is a lack of professionals fluent in both Chinese and Portuguese speaking IP laws. Because in Macau, our law also in Chinese and Portuguese. So we have to make the great course for who studying Portuguese and Chinese have to know to speak Chinese. And so I went to Portugal to study for my university. So I'm one of the professionals, IP workers in Macau that is speaking Chinese and Portuguese. So I think the solution is the universities in Macau should enhance the IP curricular, partners with the Lusophone institutions, and attract global talent through exchange programs. Yes.
I see. So does everyone in Macau speak Portuguese fluently?
No, not everyone is speaking Portuguese. So most of them are speaking only Chinese and English, because the English is the global language, right? But Portuguese, I think, is the second language in the global wide.
I see. That's good.
I
Thank you.
think it's Spanish. It's Spanish, right? It's Spanish. Yeah, Spanish. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. The next question to Isha. There are 2 questions for you. Number 1, is it mandatory to get IPR valuation done before IPR commercialization?
So not ideally, not mandatory, but it is advisable, to be very honest. So most of the time, if the company stature is high, they would require an IP valuation to get to an accurate figure. Because most of the time, business teams do the projected value and use the market-based approach to be able to derive to the IP valuation. But it is always advisable to go ahead with a registered valuer, do the IP valuation in place so that you can have an accurate figure and you're not undervaluing your IP when you're going for any sort of merger and acquisitions, or as we discussed, for different kind of commercializations.
Okay, thank you. And there one more question. When is the right time to opt for IPR commercialization strategies?
Right. So IP commercialization can actually be done once you file for any form of IP. So you need not to wait for the registration to happen. You can actually start commercializing it if you don't want to go by productization, which basically means that you don't want to run business out of it. You can utilize the licensing, franchising models, and so on. Of course, you have to analyze the due diligence, like what are the chances of it getting registered. But if you have some IP which is already being registered, it's an ideal case scenario. It's a best case scenario to go ahead with IP commercialization. So it can happen pre-grant also, but it is always better if you have the certificates being issued. You will have a higher commercialization and valuation once you achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That was all the questions I received. So if you do not have anything to add, I will close this session.
I think there was one more question, Chihiro, that I can see. Can I read it out?
Yeah, I cannot see
Yeah.
you.
So the question is, how should IP law evolve to fairly attribute inventorship in collaborative biotech projects where multiple stakeholders, such as IP developers, data providers, and domain experts contribute to the final invention? So I'll answer this. So as I spoke during my presentation, that we all know that current IP laws define inventorship narrowly. So it requires a person to make conceptual contribution to the invention's final form. But in what we see in modern biotech invention is often these contribution are distributed across the team. Say in the IP AI assisted in innovation, so a coder is building an AI, a data scientist is curating the training data, and a biologist is then verifying the outputs. So yet in the current standards, because we don't have that option, the contribution of these individuals who are like the coder or the data scientist, they might be excluded from being named as an inventor. So the option here is, I would say there are three approaches to this. Firstly, as I spoke, maybe defining a new category, which is an AI-assisted inventions, which allows for a broader interpretation of inventorship. And that acknowledges the orchestrators of these innovations, not just those who have done like the direct contribution, like the direct mental leap, the direct innovative stand, but those who configure, guide, or even validate these IP generated outputs. The second one is we can help have a team inventorship or a contribution specific models. So similar to what we use in like scientific publication, the first inventor, second inventor. This approach could acknowledge multiple contributors with different role in this area. So even if not all meets the traditional inventorship criteria, this can especially be relevant in the multidisciplinary projects, where I said that like we can give a person like the coder as contribution with respect to that he built the AI, then the data scientist, he curated the training model, and then the biologist. So such kind of contribution models can be introduced. And third would only be that there needs to be a policy harmonization and guidance to this effect. The patent offices across the globe need to issue clear guidelines on how to evaluate these inventorship collaborations or support these IP, AI generated IP. Otherwise, there's risk of inconsistency across jurisdiction, and there'll be always be a legal uncertainties for companies. So ultimately, what I say is the goal is not to dilute inventorship. Obviously, a person like an inventor, that's the major incentive. But we need to modernize it with respect to the technologies, the evolving disruptive technologies, so that this legal attribution reflects the real structure of innovation today, especially in biotech, when I say, because this intersection is fairly newer, considering it has been going on for some time for software innovations or other innovations. So computation here in this field is fairly new. So we really need to think on these norms. So, yeah.
Thank you, Manika. So if there is no additional comment from you guys, I will close this seminar. Is it okay? Okay. Yes. Okay, then thank you all for joining us today's session. We hope you found the presentations insightful and engaging. And a big thank you to all of our speakers. It was truly inspiring to hear from each of you. So before we close, we are excited to let you know that our next webinars. And could you share the slide for housekeeping? Okay. These are upcoming webinars. First, 2025 Young AIPPI Members Summit is scheduled to take place July 10, and 2025 AIPPI ACP series, AI and Copyright Case Law, Where Are We Now, is scheduled to take place on July 17. And most importantly, the AIPPI World Congress will be held in Yokohama in Japan this year, and the Young AIPPI Forum will take place on September 15. And registration is now open, and we hope to see many of you there. Yokohama is one of the beautiful cities in Japan, so I'm sure you will enjoy Yokohama. So I hope to see many of you there. So lastly, on behalf of the organizing team, thank you again for your participation and support. If there is no question anymore, we will wrap up today's webinar. Is it okay? Okay. So thank you for participating today. Please take care and have a great day.
Thank you, Chihiro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chihiro.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.